I have 2 boys, and Blake was my baby. His brother's 4 years older than him. He was an extremely easy baby. He was the best baby. He slept all the time and just a real happy little boy. Whenever he got in school, he was very shy at first. Then he would warm up real quickly. He didn't really like school because he struggled with some ADD and some dyslexia. And so when he was in the 6th grade, his dad and I decided that we would take him out of school and we would homeschool him. So from the time he was, 6th grade on, he was homeschooled, and he finished school at about 17, and then he was going to go to college at this technical institute to be a diesel mechanic. Well, we got him enrolled, and the college notified us a couple of months later that he'd only gone to just a few classes. So I got to wondering, well, what's this boy doing? Well, that was our first sign of trouble. When Blake was 15, I had both of his toenails removed. They were ingrown, and they gave him some pain medicine. And I didn't really think nothing about it. It was very painful, That was Blake's first experience with pain medication. Later, Blake would tell me that at 15, that's when he decided that he liked the pain medicine. So at about 17, 18, when he was trying to go to college, his dad and I realized, well, he's messing up. What Blake said was just partying. We thought this is a problem. So, of course, we talked to him, and he wasn't in trouble with the police or anything, but he just didn't want to go to college anymore. So he was going to come here to the car lot and work with his dad. So on Easter Sunday of 2013, Blake told me and his dad to meet him up here at the car lot, that he had some things to tell us. And we came up here, and he told us that he had a bad problem with the opiates, that he couldn't get off of them without getting sick, and that he wanted help. So we agreed, all 3 of us, that Blake would go into a rehab facility. So the next week we got him at, it's called the Freedom House. It's in Freeport. And he was going to stay there until we could get him a bed at a rehab facility. We got him to the Freedom House on a Saturday. Well, that next Tuesday, his dad was killed in a car wreck. So we had to go to the rehab and tell him that his dad had been killed in a car wreck. And Blake and his dad were very close. And that I can honestly tell you was a turning point. He no longer wanted to be in the rehab. He had a business now that he was left with. And so he didn't go to the rehab. He was going to come here and run his dad's car business. But little did we know, the addiction was already full-blown. After his father's death is when the drugs got really bad. He started abusing a lot, and he would abuse for several months, and then he would tell us that he was good and he wasn't going to do it anymore. And after his dad passed away, we found out that Blake was going to be a daddy. He had a little girl, Riley, and him and Riley's mother had gotten married, and Riley was about 1.5 years old, and Blake just got to where he just wouldn't come home, and he was running off, and he was really doing a lot of drugs. He was doing pain pills and meth, amphetamines, and so we went through these cycles of years in and out of a rehab. He would go to a rehab. He would do well for a while. He would come back out. Then in 2018, Blake got arrested with some drugs, and this time he was going to go to jail for it, So he served a little bit of time, a few months, and he got out and got in trouble again. It was just back and forth, a lot of in and out with the police and rehab and drug court. And So in 2020, Blake had 2 overdoses, about 2 months apart. It was the end of 2020. And I saw the freight train coming. I just didn't know how to stop it. So he ended up getting involved in a hit-and-run accident. And he left the scene of the accident. The other person was in a car, and it was really a minor fender bender. No one was injured, but because he left the scene, that's a felony. And so they arrested him for that, and then Blake served 9 months. He came out in 2021. He did okay for a little while, and then he fell back into the drugs, and he was actually on an ankle monitor. And I cannot tell you what all triggered each time that he would go off and binge, because that's what I call them. They were binges. He would be gone for weeks at a time, you know, where he didn't want to have contact with us. And I guess when he ran out of money, or he would come back to us. But he had cut his ankle monitor off, and he ran. He was on the run for a couple months, and the police caught up with him, and he went back to jail. From 2021, he served another 9 months in ISF in Henderson, Texas. And when he got out, April the 5th of 2022, I thought this time I really saw a difference. You know, he was really reading his Bible and studying and working his programs and doing well. So I picked him up from jail, and he was so excited to be out. And he told me, "Mama, I'm never going back to prison again. You know, I'm not going to go back to jail. I'm going to change my ways." And I believe in my heart that he worked so hard to change, but the pull of the opiates, once that addiction was there, it just wouldn't let him go. And on July the 24th, 2022, at 2:13 in the morning, my phone rang, and it was Chi St. Luke's Hospital, and they asked me if I was Blake Miller's next of kin, and I'm a nurse, so I knew something terrible had happened. I really thought that I would probably have to see my son on life support. So I go to the hospital, and when I went into the ER, the doctor asked me if I knew where my son was that night. And I told him, "No, sir, I saw him, you know, the day before," but he didn't answer us today. So I figured that he was, you know, using. I told him my son battled addiction. And then I just asked him, I said, "Sir, is my son alive?" And he told me no, that he was gone. I asked if I could see him, and they told me no, that his body was a crime scene, and that I would have to wait for a few hours. So my mother and my other son were with me, and finally they did. They let me go in and see him. And I just told him to get up. You know, "We're not going to lay. Get up. What are you doing?" But it was over. He was gone. Blake wasn't just an addict, though. Blake was a son and a brother and a friend. He always had a smile for everyone. His favorite thing to do was say a prayer for you, because through his addiction, Blake did lean heavily on the Bible and, you know, God, and thought he could pray the addiction away. He never met a stranger. He loved music, his daughter, fast cars, motorcycles. But all of that was robbed through his addiction. I believe that he never lived up to his full potential. And because he started abusing so young, I feel that in a lot of ways he never matured. You know, that he stayed that 15-year-old. That started the abuse, and he would always tell me, "Mom, I never meant to become addicted to this. I didn't have a bad childhood, you know." Blake had no traumas that caused it. He said, "Mom, I just thought it would be a good time with my friends, you know." And then next thing I know, I'm caught up in the middle of this mess, and I don't know how to get out of it. There was times he would tell us that we would all be better off if he wasn't around, which was never true. His father's parents, his grandparents, they absolutely adored him. He was just really loved, and I always thought that love would be enough to save him, but it wasn't. Even being a nurse, knowing that opiates are addictive, I never would have thought that allowing or giving my kid pain medicine in a situation where he needed it would cause anything like this. But he said it was that one time. He would go back to, "Mom, remember whenever I took pain pills when I had my toenails removed? That's when it started." So you have a lot of guilt as a parent. You feel like maybe you should have done something different, questioned your own judgment, the doctor's judgments. I don't know. I don't know. I'm here because I know that Blake would want me to share his story if it would save someone else, if it would prevent one child from thinking that it's okay. I don't believe that anyone takes a drink thinking I'm going to become an alcoholic. I don't believe that any 80-year-old person that's in pain management because they broke their back thinks, "Oh, I can become an addict because I'm 80. It's just the nature of that beast. Being a nurse, working in the medical field, I knew about fentanyl in a very professional setting. It was used, under general anesthesia, and we used it in pain management for burn victims or terminally ill patients, patches, lollipops. I was unaware that it was on the street. I just thought my kid was taking pain pills and using meth. I didn't know about fentanyl until Blake's friend had died the month before from it. And when they got his autopsy back, someone told me it was fentanyl, and I was like, well, that's used in surgeries, or pain management. That's on the street. So I learned about street fentanyl when my son died. I figured that Blake had taken too many pain pills because he had been clean for, a while. He had came out of jail off of a 9-month stint, and then I didn't know that he hadn't used from April till July, and in July he started using again. And I just thought that he was just doing his normal, methamphetamines when he couldn't find pain pills. So I wouldn't give him money. I did all the tough love things that you do. You're going to have to go to rehab. You can't run your business. You can't see your daughter. All the things that you think if you punish them with, that it will help them change. I feel like where I failed my child was educating him early on about the dangers of drugs. I don't feel like it was as prominent when Blake was coming up. We worried about marijuana and meth and Xanax, but I had never heard of fentanyl. Did not. And then as a parent, you evaluate their whole life from the moment of conception until you knew that they took their last breath, thinking, what could I have done different? The thing that I think I could have done different was talk to him more about it before it was a problem. Educate him before he tried his first drug. Maybe if I would have talked to him about drug abuse. I mean, you talk to I talked to my boys about safe sex, you know, and drinking and driving, but I didn't talk to them about that.